Hey guys, it's Tor. So it turns out that there's a bunch of guys that watch us while we're saving the world and adventuring and not doing things for ourselves and making a profit. It's kind of creepy because they sit around and talk about what we did and then they judge us. Listen to them for yourselves. Let us know what you think. And hopefully you also find it creepy.
And welcome back to Behind the Screen.
So behind the screens. I just got that.
Really?
Yeah. No, I got it. I'm just playing it up.
Sure. Good cover.
yeah, me too.
All right, so this episode, these are kind of between like the vines and we're in the jungle to the very heartfelt goodbye to Tor. Apparently,
Are we? So we're just gonna start from where we left off. So those vines, were they actually supposed to be like? What was your vision for us making our way through that?
Yeah,
forest?
why
did you
did
envision us going through the treetops?
if the plant life was alive and trying to eat us, I am curious as to why climbing higher in the trees worked.
Okay, so I apologize. I clearly was not clear on that.
No.
It was not all plant life was trying to kill you. One particular plant life was trying to kill you. It's
Like
not
the
like
vampire vines from Mothra.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And so
clearly that was my reference.
So if you guys had done perception checks, there was actually going to be one large flower that was the brain of the whole thing, and you could have killed it. I also did think that you guys may try the over-the-top level. I wasn't sure. Again, I specifically don't look to see what spells you have, just because it makes more things fun. But I assumed you guys might have some teleportation or floating or flying, or as you guys ended up doing with the... yeah, exactly. Combination with the wind blast. So that was...
Always a great combination for traversing distances.
Since
I really
that
have
heist-
to, yeah.
Ever since the heist, we're like, quick. That didn't go so well because the orb kind of disabled the magic and started an alarm.
You did it in the one room you couldn't do it in. But yeah, no, that actually went. Like I said, I always try to think of multiple ways around there so that I don't pigeonhole everybody. So you ended up for once actually taking one of my paths and not coming up with your own. So yeah,
Sometimes a good idea is a good idea.
Hey, yeah.
Now the river. What was it? A river of
Tar.
Were we supposed to have like was it just supposed to be easy to get across? Like was that just there to be like fake obstacle or was there
more of story, interest? Hey, remember these guys can do things type. Moment. I kind of take that sometimes when I create these adventures. I try to think of adventure movies. So, for instance, going into like Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit, and sometimes the story is just getting from point A to point B, and it's not like, oh, we almost died. It's more of a, oh, that was cool. Like when the wargs in The Hobbit are chasing the dwarves, and they dive into that coal that's under the ground, and then they just walk away. Like at the end of the day, not that cool of a thing, they fall in a hole and walk away, but just having that visual, that adventure of getting from point A to point B.
Yeah, the obstacles in the path.
Exactly, which was the overall point of that part of the level was, hey, you're not 2 feet from where you left those villagers, you guys are journeying a far way, and here's some things that you're encountering that's not just me saying, you walked 12 miles. It's like, okay, here's some things that happen over this, you're in this foreign mystical land that no one's really touched foot on except for a handful of adventurers and these poor people who got left behind, which the villagers had a complex backstory that never got
Shocker, we missed something like that.
Don't worry, we don't bother to ask.
Well, plus we're not out of the village.
That is true. Yeah, that's true. So we'll come up, so I won't go into that. But it's more of those, again, I have to design these things in case they do come up.
Right, sure.
But yeah, so the tar pit basically went the way I wanted it to. I did actually think of ways that every character could get across, and actually Blag was one of the ones I was like, oh, how would Blag do this if he had to go on his own, which is what spurred me to look at the monk abilities and find that one that we had over...
Which came in very handy.
Yeah, that we missed that ability to jump twice as far, and I was like, oh, that's important. Yeah. So that's why I made those cheat cards for it, because I was like, obviously we've forgotten stuff. So.
Obviously, I mean, a lot of the listeners out there, both of you don't know that Kyle, because obviously I'm the newbie at the game, and he wrote down on index cards a lot of my abilities that we'd been forgetting about, and it's very helpful for me instead of having to shuffle through a bunch of papers that I wrote, which don't really mean anything. So,
That's pretty much the experience with all of us.
Yeah.
But
I'll apologize now too for everybody for my Scottish singing there.
I thought it was
I
wonderful.
thought it was nice.
It rolled me
Nice
right into
touch.
the. Yeah.
I like to kind of be like, a meeting of musicians.
yeah, I enjoyed that. I was actually wondering if that was when I created that. I was like, I wonder if this will end up in being some sort of
A music aficionado.
Yeah.
Why not? You mentioned how we each had what you envisioned ways of each of us getting across. Did that pretty much play out the way? How did you think, like, each of us? I'm just curious.
Wind Gust with Featherfall was something I actually thought of again because it's come up in the past. So it wasn't anything la-di-da, and I know that, and I could be wrong here, but it's to my understanding, again, I don't read the spells on purpose, that warlocks have a series of teleportation type things, so I figured Wrath would go that route if everybody wasn't joined in. I also thought about Blink, which is really funny because Kevin's character in the offshoot has...
Which maybe you've heard it, or maybe you
Yeah,
haven't at this
you guys
point.
may
Who
not have heard
knows?
at this point, but they have, more than likely you have not heard, but we do it a couple offshoot episodes, and his character had Blink, and I got it mixed up and thought Court had it for a hot moment.
I'll just blink. Can I have Blink? Can Court have Blink? That would have been nice to get out of that thing's stomach later on.
Yeah, right?
So the important question is, could Tor have warned Ferguson if he attacked Ferguson?
Fergus or
Alright,
Ferguson?
I don't remember.
I think it's
Fergus.
Fergus.
The fact that I remembered that much, I'm impressed
Fergus.
by.
You got it. But he's not the younger brother from Clarissa Explains It All. But
Yeah.
You know what?
Right.
He
I think
could
it was
be.
Crowley from Supernatural.
Yeah,
Craig Ferguson.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you
Um,
go.
So hypothetically, if you had killed him, you could have warned him, but it would have been the equivalent to sort of killing somebody and wearing their corpse.
That's one of the reasons why I did hesitate when you said it was like a living soul inside
Yeah.
of something. It bothered me too much, but I still really kind of wanted to.
How easy would it have been for us to kill it or him?
Fergus? Fergus in and of itself probably would have been a hard fight. Not saying impossible. You probably would have won. But it probably wouldn't have been worth your time and effort, especially if you then had to go through the cave.
Right.
Because you would have been pretty beat up.
Oh, I'm glad we left him alive. I like that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The problem with it really would have been that the Mind Flayer would have stepped in at some point because Fergus is his minion that he likes.
Okay.
Which is delving a little more into that character. But as you know, most of the time he just has these slaves and stuff. But he actually has some attachment, and you're one of them. As you saw his interactions with you. He stands out from normal Mind Flayers that he isn't completely removed from the world. He does form attachments, and he seems to be not as attached to the typical Mind Flayer societies. He's moving outside of their norms, and he has an attachment to Fergus.
Is he competition for Tor's Casino? He's the Tor of all the Mind Flayers. He's stepping out. And
Yes.
just be like, I'm enterprising and starting my own business.
In a way, there's more to the Mind Flayer that will come up. We haven't seen the last of him, but I'm not going to delve into that.
And obviously, tell me if you can't answer this question, obviously. But somebody had brought up in this one, and I thought it was an interesting point, that the first time, obviously, we encountered the Mind Flayer, he was enslaving dwarves. And this time, he had shifters in cages. So is that a deliberate move that we're going to run in, like he's just doing things to get our attention, or...
I didn't realize it myself until somebody else brought it
Okay.
up. He chose those people because in the first time he was mining, so he picked dwarves, and the second time he was on an island where his only options were shifters.
Right.
It was
There
completely...
was lizard people.
There were Yanti, that is true.
He's kind of like that wizard from the Quest for Glory series who just randomly shows up in different places, right?
Oh, Rasmus?
Yeah, Rasmus.
yeah, kind of, yeah.
You have to answer questions to get in.
Yeah. There's
I don't know, just like a fun little equivalency.
he's a little more...
If he enslaves bards next, we're going to know you're bullshitting.
Yes, the race of bards.
That's my favorite race.
Shh, they don't know that part of your backstory.
I forgot.
He kind of did with Fergus.
Yeah, the birds are singing.
They're on to me. Now, from now on, if you so much as sing, you're a bard.
You're a bard, that's it. All you have to do is whistle one note, and you're a bard.
Those guys at the Humming Lodge, they're almost, they're just humming.
They're
not
working
singing.
on their bardic
Well,
training.
they're
Halfway step.
an old
Agree.
society. They're still working their way up, but they'll get there.
Yeah,
They will get there.
I mean, nobody hums like a shifter.
So, who Chris Pratted the Raptors? Because that never came up again.
Oh yeah.
But it did.
Was that
But
the
it did.
Taka or whatever they're called?
They mentioned that he controls dinosaurs.
Oh,
That's us being not the smartest.
Yeah. So, all the manipulations of these monsters that seem to have been going out of their way for you, it all had been Steve.
So the water elemental this is pretty far gone, probably foregone, but was Steve.
Definitely
also.
was Steve,
So
yeah.
he was trying to get us to him so he could study me?
Specifically, yes.
Okay.
So, hasn't been delved into yet, but more of that will come up probably at our next recording. But
Oh, I won't be there.
No, actually, I won't be there.
no, I actually have a plan for that. You will be there.
Oh. You're gonna lure me with goodies?
Yeah, sure.
Excellent. So,
But yes, yeah, that was all manipulated by him.
right. Okay. Wow. Interesting.
What a
Because it was said earlier in the quest line too that somebody, not whomever it was we were talking to, was bringing people to this, and it all gels. It all makes sense.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
tracks. Trust me, audience.
Yeah.
I mean,
Like I said, not everything has been revealed yet, and
Sure.
it probably will in the next episode. But yeah, there was meaning behind everything.
I'm just really glad that on the island there, we're going through those trials, the shifters didn't turn out to be the final thing in the end. Like, we were rescuing our final foes.
Right.
Because that just seems like the kind of thing that's right up your alley. You'd be like, you get the little smirk, and then, like, they all transform and attack you now.
I did spend a couple of days getting to know our final foe, though.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
And was berated for so incessantly for threatening him that I eventually had to say he was a good guy, only then to be proven wrong by my
bought into it.
beraters.
You bought into it.
I did.
Oh,
Never
that
listen
was-
to your DM.
Did we, were you actually, I can't remember if we covered this at all. I think we talked about this off mic, but did you say, what was Steve's original name, or you're saving that?
I'm saving that.
You are
Yeah, it was a good name that I enjoyed, so I'm going to use it for another
Okay,
character
all right,
later.
all right.
So, we know that people didn't do anything that we were hoping that they were going to do, that we saved from the cages. Was it just because you're an animal lover that you were saving to displace your beast and letting it go back into the cage?
No, it's actually one of the rules of D&D that very few things are supposed to fight to the death, and I'm trying to embrace that more.
I fight to the death.
Yeah, we killed it pretty
Yeah.
much.
I was a little sad when it didn't make it back to the cage.
For
I
once,
was
Tor was the bleeding heart of
I
our
know,
group,
yeah,
like several
geez.
times.
And I was actually
You let the Ankylosaurus play with the other Ankylosaurus?
I will say, I think Tor's thing has always been animal lover. Like,
Yeah.
I think that tracks. Sure, there might be a glitch here or there, as you know, people fall out of character from time to time. But
don't think
I
I've
think
ever-
all in all, yeah, your character has always been pro animal.
I mean, if it's like hunting me, then that's a different
Right,
scenario.
of
but
course.
Hey, yeah, do you have your mimic with you?
Megan? Yeah, no, I don't
believe-
think. I think Megan. I have.
Wait,
paperwork.
Megan's the...
I
Oh,
thought
yeah,
Megan
Megan
was
the
the
mimic.
Ankylosaurus.
Oh no, I'm
Mimics.
sorry. It was Beth the Mimic, I think.
No,
Beth is the
Wow, we had that
Ankylosaur.
wrong the whole time.
It's
It's,
Beth
Megan
and-
the Mimic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but MM.
Well, maybe she
Beth-
was just mimicking the Ankylosaur.
Here we go.
Yes.
That's gonna be fun. Good luck with that. You can do that into your intros.
We'll work that out. Yeah, that's the beauty of these intros and outros that I do, too. is
Yeah, they can really
after
retcon
the
a lot
fact-
of the bullshit.
After fact,
Yeah.
I'll be like, well, let's
No,
just cover that shit.
The Mimic was not an item I was able to take.
Yes,
Okay,
I
so
believe that was correct.
she's-
I had
starting our
kept the
stuff.
sheet from when what I was able to take because I knew I wouldn't remember.
She's trying to stop the cleaning staff from using our teleportation
Nice.
to get from upstairs to downstairs. Yeah,
If I could bring something up, you guys dominated the city invasion level.
Yeah,
I
apparently.
really expected that to be a lot
West
harder of a
side.
fight, and there were rules for when, when the South, if both South Towers fell, they were going to break the gate down, and then all this stuff was going to unleash. And if they managed to take the West or East Tower, then they were going to start climbing the wall, and all this stuff's going down. And if they took the North Towers, they were going to take the dock, and all these things were and no, not a single tower.
And I think we all know the single awesome power that helped turn the tide of that battle.
Nudity.
Nudity. Hardcore male nudity. Yeah.
do a little dance.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, good
Yes,
times.
and
good times.
I was actually going to say
We know what you're gonna say. It's been
East
said
Side
enough.
Cooperation, or West Side Cooperation, but nudity will go. I was actually that was going to be the joke. But,
I thought you were going to say, like, your fists or something, taking out one person at a time, while me and Tor are like,
was-
I cast Cloud of Daggers and take out
what
five
really
of them.
won the day was our solid tactical planning throughout. That's what really our cooperation. Yeah,
Versus
is
that
what
word
did it.
that must not be said again.
Yes.
No, yeah, that's the word you were going to say. I can't believe I missed that.
So I enjoyed the patrol scenario.
That was good.
Yeah.
Thank you for bullshitting us out of that.
Well, I'm gonna use suggestion, and I'm gonna just go.
Just go with it. Yeah.
You know, sometimes it's just you just pretend the dice rolls don't exist. You just gotta you don't ask for a bullshit. I got a persuade roll. You just do it.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
I do have to say too, and unfortunately he's not here. But Wrath, he's always good when he gets that one, like when he had the ring of lying,
God,
or
yes.
he was the only one that was like all for the battle and everything.
Yes.
He always does a really great job. Like, no, guys, let's do this.
Yeah.
It's met with the right amount of hostility and
Yeah.
yet still exuberance.
Oh yeah, no, he is. Ben does a beautiful job with that.
Then that whole interaction, actually, I loved how that played out. First off, how Mike just basically out crazied them. Being like, oh yeah, I took you in.
Also fits Tor. Tor's still developing.
It's great.
I mean, he's just becoming this bucket of weird and crazy, and the one thing he isn't is normal.
And then you both get naked. Blag took his pants off.
You gotta embrace it.
And then just as I said, I yoinked the necklace.
Yeah,
and
that was
I think
hilarious.
I told you guys earlier when we were off mic. I just was like, I don't know. It just kind of came out of my mouth. I saw Kyle make the motion of holding up a necklace, and my first thought was yoink.
And you touching the tower in the
Oh,
middle of the
God,
battle.
yeah.
I'm glad you didn't fight us as hard as you could.
I at first I was just like, oh no, because it was a misunderstanding.
Oh, yeah, no.
I thought, oh, Wrath touched it and the door opened, but he didn't go in yet. I didn't realize it teleported you in. Once I realized that, it's like, you're right. I did touch it. I should go with it. And then, frankly, it ended up being nothing anyway because I was on my ass afterwards.
Right.
But that's the fun.
But that's the fun part.
If we screw up, if we can, you gotta just roll with
At
it.
the very least, it could have led to something cool.
I thought it would have been funny to have you in there talking to the wizard. Like, I really need to get back.
Now, I really, really want to bring up that frozen monster.
Sorry.
That was ridiculous.
Before we get into that, real quick, the hunting party thing. Would there have been, if you had rolled much lower, a way to simply fight them, or was it always that the hunting party was overpowering to us, or was it just the fact that there was 18 of them?
Yeah, there was based off of two rolls of who jumped who. I mean, it could have gone you jump them, it could have gone they jumped you, it could have gone you saw each other at the same time. That's all rolls.
Right.
And then there was also rolls depending on how that roll went to see how big their party was. I had a whole chart.
Okay. Sorry.
So it very easily could have went with you kill them and bring the heads back, and then they didn't work. And then I had stuff in play to kind of lead you to maybe we need to talk to the auntie. Maybe everything isn't as it seems.
Yanti. That's how we remember it's Yanni.
Yeah. How you could bring them,
or like a glass of iced tea that's distant.
Yanti.
Please bring me Yanti.
But that was going to be the harder scenarios if you brought the heads back and they didn't work, because I was afraid you guys would be like, well, I guess we just wait here then. So I did have a couple things in there to lead you back to the auntie to be like, hey, maybe everything's not as it seems. And don't get me wrong, the auntie aren't good. It's not like they were the hero of the group. They were just the lesser evil.
Yeah. Which is what I thought before I got berated for. But anyway.
How much did you really think that Steve, out of curiosity, was the evil?
I'd say 50-50.
50-50?
I would definitely not say it was lower than that, but it was definitely not higher than that. It's always, I'm a writer too.
Yeah.
So, there's always that idea of like, not everything is what it seems. That's why I it's like, okay, I'm going to believe this guy, but just so you know, if you cross me, just don't.
No, I totally get that. Yeah, I wanted to make sure it didn't come out of left field when he was, I hate that. It's one of my worst tropes where like there's absolutely no sign this is the villain, and then at the end he's the villain.
Roll for
all the perception rolls. It's also why the one guy was, he had the auntie tied up, and there was just subtle things, hints that I had that I can't even think of what they are, written throughout there to say everything here isn't as it appears. There's something off here. The fact that he didn't let people go in and out when they wanted to, that it was so controlled. The fact that you get teleported to the top of the tower, that you don't get to see that. Even I think Wrath said on air that I specifically said, oh, you'll have to climb the stairs. It was all these things that I was kind of being like, all right, come on, something's not adding up here. But at the same time,
it could have been benign.
Exactly. I wanted it to be a gut feeling more than this is the evil, or that guy's totally good. I wanted that little bit of I guess exactly what you said, that 50-50 where you're like, maybe.
Yeah, and it was, I did have That's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
So,
Excellent.
yeah.
Excellent.
What were you gonna say?
No, nothing. I was just gonna say I would have been amazing if actually it wasn't Steve at all, and it was that finely dressed man we didn't follow.
Finally,
It's
we meet
me.
again.
Like how we referenced all our past villains during that one fight. It's like, oh, the hellish armors show up. Following us the whole time. They've just been changing direction wherever we've been moving. Oh, and it's that guy again.
Yeah. So the frozen monster.
Yes, please.
I got an intimate insight.
I thought it.
That character was totally supposed to just be, if you took too long going through the levels, he would attack. And the idea behind him was to spur you on to try to go through the levels faster. The exact opposite happened.
Hey, let's wait for him.
We did.
That is the perfect example of DM planning. You know, no matter, like, because my thing was, all right, I don't want you guys to overthink these traps on your way up the tower. Just go through.
The only thing we do overthink is.
Yeah.
We overthink it in the incredibly wrong
Oh,
way.
yeah.
Worst way possible. Yeah.
So that fight, he was supposed to be super intimidating, which means powerful, because I wanted you to look at him and go, no, we don't want to fight that. And what you guys said was, yes, let's fight that.
Let's fight that thing.
Let's thaw it.
Now, let me ask
actually-
you. Go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't have an opinion either way. I was actually kind of like, we're not going to go upstairs after Steve. And you guys were like, let's fight him. I'm like, I guess I'll go with the group.
I was legitimately hoping we could just lure him out and then run past him.
Yeah.
I didn't want to fight him.
Well,
I
the
just
thought
wanted-
process was not to be trapped in the tower with this
him.
thing.
Yeah, no.
Exactly.
And I will say
Massacring the tower.
that was my oversight. I should have thought of that scenario, but can't think of them all.
And if you can, we'll find a way to.
Would-
still
Yeah,
screw it up.
exactly.
Would physical attacks have... Because I didn't really do anything in that fight.
Yes,
because
they
would've-
would have done reduced damage. There's very few things, if any, in the game where physical attacks do nothing.
See, that's something I think I really need to get used to, because I did the same thing with the elemental fight on the like, oh, it's water, none of my slashing is gonna hurt it.
Yeah.
And I remember even then you were like, no, it'll hurt it, just not as much. And then I forgot for this
Yeah.
fight, so I was like, I try to jump through it and save my friend
Yeah.
instead of like I try to kill it.
The
Just
go-to
remember
is always
punching.
try one attack. You know,
Okay.
swing at it, and if it doesn't work, never do it again. But
Sure.
there's very few monsters that
I
don't.
know that whoever attacks first, you seem to send the monster after. So
I try to play it from. I try to put myself in the mind of the monster and
Yeah.
say, what would it do? Because even during that Displacer Beast fight, I 100% next attack was going on Blag, and then Court stabbed him deep in the nose, and he's right in front of his face, stabbing him. Like, yeah, the monster's got to go that way.
Yeah.
And so I never, in any of the fights, that one wasn't really trying to gun for Court per se. It's just I try to place how the monster would, because if I do, now it attacks Court, now it attacks Blag, now it attacks Wrath. It doesn't make sense. It's
Yeah.
not how things react, and no one will ever even be slightly in danger if you're all splitting the damage. It's not how it works.
right, and I mean half the fights really are like at least one person trying to keep the dying person alive while
Yeah.
everyone else tries
Actually,
to damage the creature.
The Wraith fight, I think that actually, no, that was when I got advantage in the beginning, and both my spells fizzled in the beginning, so
Yeah.
I was no threat.
You were the one who opened the door and had the amulet.
That's true. That was.
I was the one that freed it from the ice
Yeah.
block.
Yeah,
Now,
that's why he liked you.
I'll just have this.
Friend.
just going back since we were talking about the Displacer Beast, the Drow attacking Ferg.
Yes.
Is that because Ferg put him? It's Ferg, right? I'm gonna
Yeah,
say.
yeah.
He
It's-
put him in there.
Fergie.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's what
so that's what that was, and that was more of a Drow are very super powerful, and because you guys had taken damage up to that point, that Drow, let's say if you guys walked into that fight fresh, it would have been like a tough battle because you weren't walking into that fight fresh. You were at a disadvantage, so I knew I wanted him to waste one attack that let you guys get a full round extra, and so I stopped and I said, okay, why would the Drow waste a first attack? And I was like, well, he's not dumb. He knows that, you guys are just going through the trials, and that Fergus is the true
villain.
Yeah, the true villain, the true reason he's in there. He's the manipulator. He's the reason that, if he kills the guy, if he kills the people walking in, he goes back in the cage. So he knew he had to take out that team. Your team was second priority.
So I
But
guess, what was the overall point of the cages and freeing the people and the traps? Like, if that didn't come up yet, I don't know. But I mean,
No,
you
it
just
didn't.
walked through everything and ignored everything.
Just
yes, you
decided
could
to have
have,
another
and it
game.
was a trial. And so it didn't come up, and it could have, and I'll dive into that because I don't mind. That was the trial of sacrifice, and you were being tested by the Mind Flayer to see if you have to leave someone else behind, because you could have walked through, and all those people could have died, and you would have been fine, and you still would have got out. Would you risk your life to save these people that you don't know? And again, this I won't go into, but there's a reason he's putting you through these trials. There was a point to the first trial.
So we actually did something heroic.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
You're welcome. Everyone was like, no, Tor, leave him.
So we're good at saving people and throwing rocks at things to find out if they're mimics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was a good test.
Well, there was more to that. That was actually a test of bravery.
Which we failed by throwing
Well, no, you still, you went through. You didn't go, hey, this wasn't worth it. That was... I guess I shouldn't even say test of bravery so much as of
cleaning them out.
no, yeah, of adventurousness.
Sure.
If that's a word, to see if you
think it's
if you're so gung ho that you go, no, let's check every room, let's go through this and see what's happening. And that's why when you encountered him, he said, I had to think on this. Why don't you check the rooms up top to see if you guys would go? No, we'll wait right outside, or let's check out every room.
Okay. So the spots where we're not being tested, that we don't know that it's a part of the game, is the ones that we're doing the best. But whenever it's like, here's a monster in a frozen ice block, let's free it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think for me, at least, to the thinking there is we're gonna have to fight this thing anyway. We might as well take some sort of advantage of knowing
I try to set it up so that obviously the main villains are probably an exception. But for the most part, anything you have to there's almost nothing you have to fight. There's always a way around.
I'm glad we got around the drow.
Yeah, exactly. You got around the drow. You got around the plants in the forest. There's. I try not to. You could have gotten around the ice block creature.
We could have.
Yeah, you could have got around the displacer beast. There was actually ways built in for that too.
Oh, okay.
I try to always have an out with exceptions. There are exceptions, like when the first time you encountered the Fogers. You had to kill the Fogers. So there are exceptions to the rule. But for the most part, I try to say, hey, not every party, and yours is, but not every adventuring party is all about slaughter everything. So I try to say, okay, what are the other possible routes here?
Yeah.
So the going back to the traps and the sacrifice, so, the lava room, were we just supposed to get burnt, essentially?
There was, and I'm not going to go into it because
Okay.
I'll probably pop up again.
That's fine.
He loves saving that shit.
I don't blame him. It
I
takes him a
know.
while to
Either
figure
if
it
we
out.
break it,
hasn't-
then keep it.
Yeah,
Exactly. It's
I mean,
been exhausted.
the red halls, that if you guys remember, when you're going under there's dozens of traps in there that you guys didn't encounter, and all
Thank
of them, one of them was a nice creature that you could have released. One of them was a series of color tiles you had to push. One of them were dark fairies you had to when you guys don't
Yeah.
encounter these things, they take time for me to build and develop, so I pull them out and I plug them in somewhere else, so that when I got to Wizard's Tower, I could say, okay, here's a dozen traps I built already, which of these make sense here? And I can go, okay, let me plug these in as I need them, so that way I don't have to recreate the wheel every time. Now, once you encounter them, they're off the table.
I think that color trap was the quickest one we've ever gotten.
Oh,
Yeah.
definitely.
It was
I
just
can tell that was an early level trap move
Yeah.
to it later. Now that you say it,
Like Mike, you were just immediately, and I was just like, because I wrote all the colors, and I was like, grow. Oh, GR. Oh, he's already doing it.
Well, just I looked at your sheet and you wrote the first letter for each color, and then he's like, it's the grow, and I was like, oh, that's all it is.
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah, that
And if
was
you didn't write it down, I might not have figured it out.
Teamwork.
Yep.
Yay.
to
I
go
didn't
back
even
to
realize.
I try to think of other adventure. That was my speak friend and enter.
Yeah,
You know,
that was
that-
good.
Melon.
But so in the traps with the shifters, you said they would have died if we had walked by. Would we? I mean, did you have anything planned for that? Or would they have not actually died? We just would have assumed, been told they died.
Would Mind
or-
Flayer just be
I
very
think I can
disappointed?
review this. I hopefully it won't screw me later. But you would have heard the doors close. You would have heard the traps go off. You would have heard screaming, and it would have all been fake from the mind.
I was going to say,
flayer.
we wouldn't have heard,
Okay.
if they couldn't speak, it would have been fake screaming.
Yeah. It would all be the mind flayer not because he's a super nice guy. Because like I said, he's not super good. He's not evil. He's not super.
He's an opportunist.
Yeah.
He's able to use those later if he needs to.
Right. Yeah. At best, I could say you guys don't know him enough yet.
Right.
Seems all right.
But he's also not going to bother to recapture prisoners
That's
all
what I-
that time.
that's why I had both.
yeah.
No,
Yeah.
you know what? I respect that as someone who's very frugal.
Yeah. Of course,
It's a
you guys
resource.
don't know that, so when
No.
you
No,
play
our
the game,
characters-
that knowledge is
And
there.
the other thing is, I remember you saying prior to us, I believe, going into Steve's tower, that regardless, in some of the choices that we make, it could either take a long time or a short time. And obviously, the choice we made that took a long time was a choice that we weren't even really supposed to consider.
Exactly.
So, in what, like, did you have to cut? Don't tell me what. Obviously, did you have to cut things out of that to speed it along?
I actually had an extra level of that tower that I took out yesterday before
no.
anything else happened.
They're gonna screw this up. Take this one out.
Great monster.
It actually changed the top layer too, because the top that color thing actually had to do with the level below it, and because I took that out, I had to alter the grow thing.
Oh, okay.
It was slightly different and actually made more sense. It was a little random here, but that's because that level came out. But during that, no, I didn't have to change anything. It was really if you ran past the monsters, figured out the fairies right away, figured out the trap right away, which you did both of them, you would have popped upstairs without having to deal with the bottom, and it would have been 5 minutes. But you fought
we
it.
waited.
I did enjoy that, that Leech / Blag was just like, oh, do your acorn trick, because I would have completely forgot about it. But then, like, everyone marched behind me, like, we got this, and just kept going.
Yeah.
You're like, no.
I was hoping that was just going to be blanket for the whole party.
Yeah.
Like, oh, good, we entertained them. We go.
Yeah.
And then my stupid dog trick, I guess. Because I was like, they don't know what's upstairs. They're on this floor. But it still didn't impress them.
Yeah, I mean the whole city too. The whole village is shifters.
They
so
don't go outside. There's
You
no
don't know
doors.
that.
I felt bad that like you two were like going on for me. It felt like it was a half an hour of discussing. So it was like, just say you sing a song. We're overcomplicating it. That's what we do, and we always
I was gonna say, the whole
overcomplicate it.
group does that
I was trying to think
constantly
of something
over.
clever because
Yeah.
you had your ready for winter game, and I was like, "Oh God, let's think
Which
of some
I
fun
thought
things."
of. I should have gotten some.
You
half
should.
credit.
You're
Sorry.
But then you're right. But then it was just
Yeah.
rolling the performance. It was like, yeah, that is cool too, because it was like, yeah, I was using my pick techniques. And
I was
That's what I was
actually
you
I was
are
actually
the only natural performer, and
I
you're like,
am.
I got to figure something
I got
clever
nothing,
out.
guys.
I don't know how to entertain.
I actually again was thinking about this, and I assumed it was going to be feats of magic from everybody except for Blag, and I thought Blag would do a feat of strength, and that didn't
didn't.
happen. And that, again,
Again, I was perfectly willing to kill and eat them.
it wouldn't have gone well. Is all I'll say.
That's why I'm glad
I think they
that-
would have gone inside of you and then just started flying out.
That's horrifying. Yeah.
While I know this goes directly against typical D&D rules, I prefer worlds where fairies are very powerful, but kind of removed. They're not really on sides other than their own.
Unless you piss them off, they're not gonna.
Yeah, exactly. So that would not have gone well.
Yeah. So how did he manage to capture and keep fairies in there?
Yeah, I didn't write that much backstory.
I pictured Smurfs the way he was saying they live inside of mushrooms.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
stuff,
okay.
like,
It's more of a that's where they lived.
Okay.
How he got them to live there, I couldn't tell you.
They were already there. He just like looked up on Craigslist.
Built the tower
It was just
around
like,
it,
hey,
yeah.
need a roommate for the top part of a tower. share bottom room with ice monster frozen in ice.
I'm guessing we weren't supposed to throw a hole in the ceiling and drag the cleric down and all that
That was
at that early part of it.
No, that was from the very beginning. I remember that hole existed, and that hole could have. That was one of the reasons why long ago I said this today recording could have been very different, because I knew you could have walked right up to that tower through the hole, and all four of you could have been in immediately before even talking to Steve once. And so that was built in. You guys didn't do it, but you could have tried the hole in the Cave of Trials as well, and the magic resistance, you basically every time you tried putting it on a cage, it would have had a chance of working or not, and it would have been each time you would have had roll 1d20 and beat X number, and it would have worked, or it would have been like rejected off.
So I'm glad Ben remembered the hole, because the first several times I tried to use it for my way of things, it was never functional. I still honestly only today finally got an idea of what it can actually do. I had no idea prior to.
Yeah.
Not that
I
you.
felt bad shutting you down when you're like, I thought the monsters. I remember specifically we talked about that because you asked the same question, and it was just one of those like, it breaks the game too much.
Yeah.
Well, I said I didn't want to use it to kill the monster, and because it wasn't a physical thing, I just wanted to try and get something out of it. But it's the
get
same basic principle.
Exactly.
So,
If it can attach to creatures, it can attach to creatures. So
Right, right.
it's that one of those things where, excuse me, I just have to say, unfortunately, sorry.
Yeah,
I love to
he
say
survived,
yes.
so-
It's why when he said I want to be on the ramparts, and I didn't have ramparts there, I said, you know what? There's
There's a
ramparts.
rampart.
It was
It's a
because
good
that's
visual.
what's fun. Yeah, and
Yeah.
it makes the game more fun. Like I don't want
a
to.
naked blood-coated dwarf dancing.
Yeah,
on the,
yeah. And even when you were like, can we find a part of the jungle that looks like this? Yeah, you find it.
Yeah.
There's no reason for me to be like, no, I drew it like this, or that's the way it is.
Yeah.
I mean, speaking of Ben, I think he had a really good game. He actually used a ranger skill to
Yes,
help us survive.
that was fabulous.
I had the worst rolls I have ever had in a
And
game.
Kyle had the best.
Oh my god!
I remember I had one natural 20. I don't even remember what the hell it was for. Probably something worthless, but I had one natural 20.
We got a few.
Ben had a few. I remember he got the T-Rex with wings.
Yeah.
I literally, every bad roll I had was for the Ankylo.
Yeah.
And every good roll, and
We
the
know what all
Ankylo
your good rolls were.
or catching the arrows. The catching the arrow back, like those were my only low rolls, and it was just like, wow, I can't believe. I actually did force one. Well, I guess I didn't really force it, but I didn't go into it. But the Ankylo actually crit failed at one point, and I was just like, all right, I don't need to go into the Ankylo's crit fail.
Well,
Let's
see,
just
he
move
does
on.
cheat for us sometimes.
No, he was just too lazy to finish that one.
Especially because that's not fun for anybody to be like, hey, this NPC that's not really any of you does this. You're just like, all right. And he can't like drop his weapon or anything. So,
His tail falls.
off.
Yeah.
All right.
so it's just like, why delve into
But
it?
if it had died, at least we know we could have where we could have claimed another Ankylosaurus.
Yeah, it's true.
Right outside.
I like that you gave me the heroic moment because I'm like, he goes to play with them.
Yeah, I would like to petition that some of us get heroic moments too.
I have yet
for
to get one.
all the things we have performed throughout the campaign, and not a one because Kyle always forgets.
Unless it's Tor.
Unless it's Tor.
It's specifically
Who's dead?
His heroic moment is
It
not
died
being
with me.
dead.
You're not dead.
Wait,
The audience
spoilers.
doesn't know.
Yeah, we already told what the amulet did.
No one's gonna remember.
I don't. I honestly don't.
Well, for those listening and for you, his amulet had a secondary effect that obviously causes it to break. But if one of the people wearing the necklace dies, it actually right before you die brings you to the other person. So
wait, I think
It
He's
sounds like
covered
bullshit.
that.
I don't
Yeah.
think
This necklace, if I remember correctly, came from the tournament when
Correct.
I won. I got to make one magic item. So the deal was that I think you made it retro, which was nice, or I sent it to her. But it went to. Can I say where it went to, or should I?
Yeah,
wait?
you can.
It went.
I
To,
believe you said it
I said
on
that
air.
it went to my wife, and it was just a way of connecting. So whenever it gets warm, it means the other person's either they're thinking about you heavily, and you know it's just a way of sensing that. And it was also like Kyle kept saying, "Well, if you die in this game." I was like, I need a way to cheat this a little bit. So it was my
trying
way
to break
of.
that. Yeah.
I was like, he'll fall for the love card.
And I did.
So it was just that, like, instead
love you.
at the instant of my death, I go there. Now, to be fair, my character for one of his cantrips, I have to always have the spell, which I don't think I've told anybody. But my permanent cantrip, I could have 4, but I can only really pick 3 because I pick Spare the Dying. I always keep that in case the wife ever gets ported to me. I can at least stabilize her. Is the concept.
Very, very cool.
But now it worked in reverse.
And it could
Yeah.
also work for us, but why would you do that for the party?
Well, the only one who ever went completely dead was drowning at the same moment.
That's,
So,
no,
like,
that's true. And then it was just like, use the dog, use the dog. Use the
Yeah,
dog.
it was the one time when I tried to. I think I even said it in the episode, but I couldn't reach him, so I couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
And then you got spit up the same moment I got dragged in.
No, yeah, that was
the only other time that's even come up, and it's just I haven't been able to do
I
anything.
think that was the closest to a party wipe. I actually thought Steve would have been the next closest, but that you guys actually handled him way better than I thought you would have.
together as a team.
Yeah, because realistically, if he didn't focus fire, like you guys would have obliterated.
Well, I mean, I think it's lucky that both me and Wrath, when he did the fireball,
Yeah.
at one point we both rolled 20s, and it was
Yeah,
just
definitely.
like, all right, negates that damage.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was his big opener, and that was actually the most damage he was going to do. And you know, if you consider AOE and adding it all up,
and
that
me
was
and-
his big hit. And
Me and
then,
Wrath are the most squishy of the group.
yeah,
so-
exactly.
Apparently, that was me actually.
I'm glad that I did nothing and that he didn't target me, even though we had a history of me threatening him constantly. And when he was even giant, I was apparently just crawling all over him, trying to find a soft spot to bite, but I still didn't really do
That
any
did
damage.
bother me constantly. Is he's like you're like tearing at the neck of this guy, and I'm unconscious across the room. He's like, nope, going for that guy. That guy's biggest threat.
No, that was a life decision I made about that character, that he targets healers. And that was why, even after Tor went down, his attack went to court. That and I do have to consider, even though you're describing these awesome things, and they are so cool,
Oh, yeah.
they're
The
not
rolls.
doing a lot of damage. So, yeah, the guy who's hitting them in the face and doing all this damage versus the guy who's pulling at the scales at the back and is kind of like, ouch.
Like a gnat instead
Yeah,
of a...
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The numbers just weren't there. Now, if you had rolled a crit and did a massive damage, yeah, that could have changed everything.
Right.
But
Jeez, way to screw that one.
Yeah, I'll do that. That's
Be
my-
more like Kyle, rolling crits to kill.
Kill a constant crit, yeah.
I actually I don't think I ever crit on
No,
an
but
attack.
you critted a couple. I think
I critted on weird things,
critted
not on
on
damage.
saves definitely.
Yeah.
But like most of them were like 17s and
Yeah,
18s.
no, you didn't want that guy to crit on attack. That would have knocked even Tor unconscious in one hit. If he
It did.
crit.
I was just wondering. I usually, I'm glad it was Wrath/Ben, but he at least rolled the crit on the weird thing, because usually that's the only time I roll a crit is on the weird thing.
Critical Butler.
Yeah. Oh my god, I love that still.
That's still the best
great.
one.
Yeah.
See, that's what we should have used. Sorry, I don't want to cut you off. Go ahead.
No. Or it was like tapping that the Fogre in the leg was like generally I crit at decent moments, but this I just was garbage today.
This was a day of garbage rolls for the most part for everyone but the DM.
I think
really
you and I
funny.
kept trading dice back and forth. Like, maybe this one will work this time. Maybe this one will work.
Yeah. In fact, at one point, Mike completely replaced all of my dice. Also because I couldn't read what they were saying on the felt
That's
top.
one
but
thing I
also
want to
they were
say, because
bad.
every time I look in, you've got these blue, like dark blue, light blue, dark blue
It's
numbers
a
on black
dot.
dice.
Yeah, that's why I
and
got rid
it's
of them.
really hard to read them.
Yeah, they were impossible to
But
read.
I will say, despite crap
and I'm
rolls,
illiterate.
today, it was, I would say, narratively very fulfilling, and I had a lot of fun.
I
with
think it was
this.
a very fulfilling day. I think all of the things were diverse enough. There was some good backstory. I did not expect to be getting out anything with my sister today at all, and that's why it kind of threw me for a loop for a little bit. But it was. But also the storyline moving forward was very good. Made a lot of sense. The whole just flow of the narrative within itself, even beyond our own stories, I thought was very good.
Thank you. I
So
appreciate that.
can we go into this of was the intention to kill me to get to the next story arc?
So again, I never tried. No, not in that.
You're trying to railroad us here.
Exactly.
I know,
I'm
yeah.
never trying to do that. Dice always determine everything. You very easily could have gotten out of that if his rolls had missed.
And my rolls have been better.
Right, yeah. That being said, it does work perfectly with the plot line. It is one of the reasons, again, I did design it to target healers, so that was the main reason. But yeah, it did move the plot line if you were the target, because of the necklace.
Now, I think it's interesting because my internal struggle was I didn't want to screw up your story, but when the guy did offer to port us anywhere, this was Tor's first time to get home. And if you guys were like, we're going to go back to Lichdom, he was going to go home and leave. Like, I know it was supposed to party and all that, but he was going home for his story.
And that was actually one of the other things where I said this could go in so many ways, because I foresaw that, because 3 of you definitively want to go home. You have something to find. And if you have this guy who says, I'll make you portals anywhere, the team very easily could split up. And that's why I said that vastly changes how the next arc begins. Because,
So what would we have had to do to get him to work with us? Like, was there any situation in which he would not have betrayed us?
very few. To be honest, off the top of my head, without my notes in front of me, I couldn't tell you verbatim. But there were moments where it was basically, if he didn't see you as a threat and if you just had to leave, he would have just been like, okay, here's a portal, go, leave me alone. But I don't want to say more than that, because that's still, like I said, we still have to record the cleanup after the battle, some of that's coming up. So
I'll be honest too, like when he was mentioning that, and I did roll that insight roll, but it was only a 13, and when it's like just above 10, I'm like, I still don't know to trust it. He was saying like, oh, I'll port you anywhere. I'm like, oh god, he's gonna like port us directly into a volcano or something. Like, I didn't quite trust him,
Right.
Because the way things were going, it's just like, all right, this guy's shifty as hell. And then of course he revealed his true colors when he revealed his final form, which
I figured it was more of like at that point that he was more interested in just getting rid of us than anything. Like, the only one who might have gotten screwed would have been Blag if he really wanted to study more. Like, where he's like, oh, everyone else go through first, I'll send Blag last.
which actually was part of the thing. He didn't give a shit about anybody except for Blag. So that was exactly one of the many paths that could have gone, was that Blag got screwed. And again, that would just have altered how the
screwing the pooch.
Yeah. And I even had stuff built up for that. If Blag ended up alone with this wizard, there was a series of events that could have happened. And that's where, for me, actually, the DM, it's hard, because you got to think of all these things and, completely alter how things are going to go. Because, in that scenario, you all leave. Blag obviously couldn't take Steve alone. Like, Steve would have. Yeah.
It's just so weird that his name. Like, I love that his name is Steve.
yes, that just aside, that is my favorite moment because of your crappy writing on Stone Tower. He's Steve Tower. Oh, Steve's there. Now his name is canonically Steve.
I can read hieroglyphics, but I had to play with it. Once it was just keep the joke going. It was like, oh, it's too good.
Definitely. Steve and Kyle, thank you for obliging us. That you're like, okay, his name is Steve.
You gotta have fun with it.
That's one of those things too. Yeah, you know we're not going to drop it. The more you resist us,
I mean, and the truth is, even things like that, where I'm like, fine, like I make it sound resigned, but that was fun. That was fun. That was pure
Especially every time you used it threateningly, or we would try to be like, Steve. It's just like, Steve, I will get you, Wizard Steve.
I'm pretty sure there was times I couldn't even get his name out without laughing. It was just like, all right.
Yeah, and like the S, Steve. You just lost it.
Let me ask too. We already know what Mike/Tor said, but for you, Court, where would if we had just been able to be teleported, where would you have chosen to go?
Let me just say, I'm very interested in this response, because when I said I knew 3 out of 4, you were the one I didn't. I did not know, because Cord is such a wanderer. I said, I don't know if he would go try to find Jade, if he would go off his own, go back to his own city, go to Lichstone, or say, hey, I want to journey with one of my friends.
It had been years since Cord had visited home, the town of Forest Edge, which has not come up yet, but that's where I originally was from. Yeah, spoilers. You gotta listen to the good stuff and those bonuses. But I have about as much idea as you guys, because, as you said, Cord's a wanderer. Sometimes I let him like just it's almost like he's gotten to the point where he kind of takes on a life of his own, and I'm like, well, Court just kind of would go where the wind takes him. At this point, he's got a little more. He's looking for answers with Jade, and he's running into her constantly, which is definitely keeping him on this quest. But other than that, I would have been like, I don't know. I mean, I got that Lichstone thing, but that's not really my style. Like I said, I'd probably be not ruling, because Court's the ruler, or Tor's the ruler.
Don't forget that.
I'd be counseling in absentia, because I'd be like, he's out of the office again. He's golfing. He's going somewhere else. He's journeying, adventuring. I'm a bard. I gotta create my tales. Gotta add to that, and it's I really enjoy that character. So I know about as much as you guys where he would go. So
see, I feel like I or Blag would have followed one of his friends, depending on the information. If he had gotten some from Steve, I feel like he would have aided one of them in there instead of going to his specific destination. I don't think he would have been teleported there. I don't think he would have wanted to been separated from the group.
You just wanted to know she was all right.
Yeah, I wanted to. Well, I want to know.
I was actually more thinking you were going to end up chasing your mom down.
Right, but I feel like I would probably try and help one of them with their, since the poem seems, perhaps in just his simplicity, to be unifying to all of us for an end game.
Sorry, just to jump back to the way earlier conversation, the poem too was one of the biggest hints that Steve wasn't everything that he seemed.
Yeah, we missed that completely.
Yeah. Kin can be taken as shifters, and he has all these shifters unconscious upstairs. So it was one of the...
Well, you know what? That's what I was originally thinking, and one of the reasons I didn't necessarily reveal the sister thing at first when that had come up, too, because the concept of the kin, and I believe possibly Kev... or somebody, I think, did mention, like, oh, you mean the shifters? And then I was like, no, you mean your mom? No!
Yeah, it actually has a double meaning. It was right there. It was the most... most of the poem was straightforward. What it said is what it was. Yours was the one with the double meaning.
Yeah, free the kin of the second life of he who was first born in flesh, second in disease, and finally in magic. Obviously, that refers to you, but free the kin, we were thinking the whole time. It's like, mom? Sister? I don't know, his dad?
Yeah, it was purposely a double meaning. So, a little spoiler there for the next episode. But,
sure. But,
little peeks.
Yeah.
But no, I think that's interesting. And I would be interested to know what Ben would say where he would have gone either, because I think it's important.
I would have went back home to see my sister.
Well, that makes sense. Thank you, Ben.
Wow, your voice has gotten a little higher.
I think he's made it quite clear that Wrath, because Wrath really did. He got rushed through that city. He showed up and everything was under attack, so he helped defend. And then immediately upon that ending, Jade stole your stuff and you chased it and got on a boat, and he basically saw his sister for all of the day, most of which was planning a war.
She's probably wondering where we are.
Oh,
he was just here.
Yeah.
I still want my stuff back. I do not like not having armor. I am super squishy.
Yeah, that's something we should probably look into next episode. We have armors.
I promise that, as I said before, the stuff isn't gone forever. Everything will come back to you.
Maybe
eventually.
I'll go to studded leather armor.
But
That'll be a nice increase.
If I go home, I can probably get some made.
Yeah, that's true.
At the worst case scenario, I'm gonna go plate this time because Jesus,
The most
wants
I
to
can do
kill
is
you.
leather. Yeah.
yeah, I can't wear anything really.
we know, but we keep taking it off. So.
Yeah, I know. That's why I should become
You
more
can't
powerful
wear
the less
anything?
clothes.
So how
Or
about the
you
nudity
won't.
in this?
Oh my god.
You had us strip down, and I understand the exact reason why, but that just opened up
It
the
opened
can
the
of
door.
worms.
Oh my god,
See,
it
Glad
did.
got confused, and he thought it would offend their enemies if these people were interested in seeing us naked. Then our naked bodies would be offensive to their foes.
That makes sense.
The very first thought was that, like, these were shifters. So in my mind, when it was like, oh, they're like animal people walking around, like, I just took it as everyone just walks around, like,
Right.
naked. Like, and that was just... So and then the joke just spiraled from there, but
Certainly.
that was...
No, and which is not typically our group's sense, not to say we're shy of it, because obviously we dove right in, but it's not our group's typical sense of humor. So it was, I think, entertaining that we dove so far into it, just because, it's not going to be like, that's our podcast now, making, naked jokes.
Make it about eating
But-
dance. Yeah.
I mean,
But-
clearly from past experience, Tor is not ashamed of his body.
Right, no,
We've gone over that.
and I don't think most of them would be. I mean, Blag is literally made into a human, like, Adonis there, and we have Court,
he's
who is the
packing heat.
biggest flirt in the world.
Yep.
That's how bards do.
I mean,
Wrath clearly has a very full...
Horn.
yes, very
Very full.
personality. He's very confident. So
My
yeah,
opinion of himself.
yeah, exactly. So that was never that was partially put in for the funniness of making you guys strip in public, but mostly because they wanted to make sure you weren't Yanti, because you certainly weren't shifters.
It 100% made sense that when that
certainly aren't we?
information came
Yeah.
out, but then we were just like, nah, we're already on the floor, so
Cover ourselves in blood.
I did expect questions to come up before you got naked.
I think that's kind of I did ask why.
I think our pants were already on the
You
floor.
guys were just like cool.
You were very much the voice of reason in today's recording.
I kinda
every way
Which
across.
I would like to say I do enjoy that does rotate.
Oh yeah, it
Literally,
definitely does.
the voice of reason changes per. It's not even per day. It's like per 10 minutes. It's like now you are.
Now you're the
Yeah, I feel
sensible
like,
one.
Why are we doing this? This is
Normally
not
I'd be like, maybe we shouldn't punch the guard, or maybe we shouldn't pull the trap. And this time I'm just like, I knocked the key off the wall.
No, this time you were like, I throw the hammer at it. The second you saw the mind
I
flare,
did that.
before you even knew
We're the
it,
most
100% it was.
I
him.
didn't know, but it just resonated that that's what it was.
Yeah.
I do like to envision Court just immediately like Tor's arm just moves like a twitch, and Court's immediately like grabs him like
And what would have happened if I had eaten the fairy's mushrooms?
Oh, so much pain.
For them, I'm assuming?
Yeah.
Good, good.
And we are left wondering though, which Yanti just has like a scale on his dick. It's just like
It's possible.
I'm technically a Yanti.
They had
Yeah.
the one that just had the scales on its face before I shoved it into
was
his
wondering.
brain.
That.
Well, why did they make it strip down
I know,
completely?
the Yanti's thing is that there's different levels. The more snake-like you are, the higher the level you are. Blah 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 blah. But some of them have like a couple scales, and said couple scales can be anywhere. Now, typically they're on the face because it's convenient for storyline. But technically, it could be. It didn't necessarily mean your dick, but it could have been on your butt.
The area between said
Yeah.
dick and
What is that called? Does
anus.
anyone know?
I believe it is the area between
Tweenus.
yeah,
The
the
tweenus.
But yeah, it could have been on your upper thigh, your butt, something like that. They have to check.
That's
But-
our trigger is butt.
Yeah.
We've
It's
gotten
also-
down to that
End
point.
duty.
And if you did notice, I did specifically also say about the auntie, they believe they can shed their skin and come back to life, and they believe they can explode and snakes come out. That may or may not be true,
Better safe than sorry.
but these are a tribal people. They have their own customs, they have their own mythos and beliefs. So even if it is impossible for a Yanti to just have scales on his butt, they don't know that, and they're going to be sure.
Apparently, Yanni eats his dead, so...
Yeah.
They do.
I feel like I need to listen to some Yanni after this just to get an idea. Because I know what he looks like.
Yeah.
But I don't know what
He has
any
a
of his music
mustache.
sounds like. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have it completely wrong, but like in my head, it's like that sexy saxophone. But I
That
100%
I think
know
that's
it's
Kenny.
not that.
You're thinking more of like Kenny G.
Oh, it is. It is.
Yeah.
But I know Jan. I remember him. I remember the dumbest facts. It's like, I think he held like the longest note playing a clarinet because he had like a breathing technique.
That was Kenny G.
All right, then
and
I
that
guess-
was with his like the super long saxophone that looks kind of like a clarinet. I remember that because way back in the day, back when Craig Kilborn hosted The Daily Show, his headline was, "This just in, Kenny G blows." So,
Yeah, all right. Interesting. So this whole time we've been fighting the wrong guy.
yeah, we need to find Kenny G.
need to
The
kill
race
Kenny
of Kenny
G.
G.
Soft jazz will never recover.
By
race
the
of
time
Kenny
this
G.
night is over.
Get him!
Did I describe what Fergus looked like?
You said he was a
Golden
golden.
Well, I did say
armor
golden
with nothing
armor.
in his-
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, nothing inside.
Tor was very intrigued by him.
Yes.
And
Okay.
I'm still disappointed. But I do love, I don't know why, but like it just became Tor wants to hold his hand. And like,
Don't worry. After we finish the entire storyline and we're like level 18, 20, whatever, we'll go back and kill him just so you can
I
wear the
can't.
armor.
I would have
can.
attacked him 100%, but it was that there's a living essence inside of him, and that was the. If it was just like the armor from the heist episode, no problem, I would have been at it. But
Yeah.
it's still a soul in there, and that bothered him. I mean,
Maybe the Mind Flayer can do you a solid and switch his soul into another thing.
that or just make me another set of
Give
armor.
you another set of golden armor.
And I'm just proud of myself for remembering my god's name.
Did Fergus go over well then? Everybody
Oh,
liked
I
it?
love
yeah,
Fergus.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
he's great.
Yeah, Scottish people are always good for
Well,
Americans.
you know, I hated to go the trope of the angry Scot too, because I do try to stay away from tropes.
You've just made an enemy for a wife.
Yeah, but that's why I also tried to make him.
another Scot.
I tried to make him jolly and endearing too, and
That's why I said as soon as I picked up on him, like, oh, the pipes. I didn't say I also referred to. Oh, I can play the pan flute and the viola.
Right.
I would love to actually. Maybe a later skill. Can I take up another instrument? I want to learn the bagpipes.
yeah,
This
hey,
court.
Fergus would love that.
Yeah.
Fergus.
Just to warn you, I know we don't cut the strings on your lute, but I'm pretty sure someone's going to puncture the bag if you take the bagpipes.
Probably.
Probably.
That's exactly the sound of it.
I was gonna say probably only if you imitate the sound every time. It's like,
All right. Well, it's time for me to start my next song. And we've replaced Kevin on the podcast.
with his brother,
Scott.
one of many.
They're all the same.
Yeah, Plurdy's a plurdy. Anything else, gentlemen?
Oh, so much.
I
I think that's
good.
Were we supposed to do anything more with the lizard village, actually? Like the priestess and all
Well,
that
again,
stuff?
multiple routes that could have gone, as always. That, you know, depending how things went with the hunting party, it could have ended up being an invasion on the city, or, you know, I specifically said hunting party, so you guys' first option wasn't let's invade a city by ourselves.
because
But
that always goes well.
Yeah.
That's the first thing I do when I'm shipwrecked on an island.
but
Invade the indigenous population.
I did
Like
have
Columbus.
a plan set up of information to lead you in a specific route if you tried to invade the city, so that there was a safe-ish way to do it. And then if you tried to just outright do it, I had things built in to be like, no, please don't. That's a bad life choice.
Yeah.
So that could have come up in different ways that way. But as far as Yanti go, they are Yanti, so it's not like I'm expecting you guys to go back and visit and be like, hey, we did it. You know,
was gonna
they'll
say-
probably kill you.
Would they? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
The thing that was bothering me too is I don't know whether this was intentional or not, or I picked up on it, or I felt that it was something. But the invasion of the Yanis into the shifters, like it felt like you were getting the impression that there's not many of these villagers left, and the next time that they invade, like this whole civilization
I
is
guess
just
half of
dead.
them are in the tower.
Yeah,
right?
and you are right. The Yanti, the shifters don't hold a candle to the size of the Yanti, which actually goes into the actual, if you read the books, Yanti thing. They are a huge civilization. They were once the biggest civilization in D&D, and they were actually beaten back by other forces and
By the
reduced.
mammals.
But yes, but even by Steve, but even their remaining cities tend to be quite populent. And there's a much more about the shifter history, and it may or may not come up next recording, so I will not going to delve into that. But yeah, they are a dwindling people. But a little bit look inside. Not that it matters that much, but they really only were attacking the shifters because
they wanted to kill
they
Steve.
wanted to get
So
Steve.
now if
Yeah,
they find out Steve's dead, and they may be just left alone.
Yeah, it's not worth their losses to take because they don't have any. It's not like they're this horrible enemy that's gonna duke them out to the death. It's not like they have all these prizes they want from the. It's just this village barely surviving on its own.
They're not just genocidal for the reason of
being
being
and
genocidal.
hypothetically, if they took over the rest of the world and this village was left, yes, they go in and wipe them out.
Yeah.
But they're not going to throw there are people at it to die for no reason at this point.
Yeah, I know we're diving a lot further into something that you probably didn't really intend to even care about, but it was one of those little like nuggets through the story that for some reason resonated with me, and I picked up on it.
Yeah, no. I don't always, but I try to come up with that stuff.
So if we went along with the capture and didn't go that crazy route that I fucking loved, would we would have been thrown into cells? And I'm wondering, would we have been pitted against each other in the arena? Would it be like another?
The only way that was possibly going to come up, because I didn't want it to, would be if you guys were like disobedient prisoners and you brought them to that point. Yeah. If you got to that point, then yeah. But it was one of those things where I was hoping you guys were going to be intelligent. God, no, not to do it. Yeah, because if you're in a pit fighting to the death amongst each other, surrounded by the anti-village, you're dead one way or the other. You're killing each other, or they're killing you. But that was the end of our game. That would have been...
What an ending it would have been.
Well, it would have either been your death or me going, shit, how do I get them out of this? And all of a sudden, Steve is a good guy teleporting you out, and I have to rewrite the whole story.
And you finally remember that Jade is supposed to show up and actually rescue us, which we'll get
don't
to
say
that,
anything, because that'll come up next time.
Well, I felt like when we... I mean, obviously, although we paved our own way into the anti-village... considering there was really no choice but capture there anyway. And either way, they took us directly to the priestess. I felt like, again, unless we started like, no, I rage and fight them, that was just going to be what was going to happen anyway. So
that was the way the storyline was supposed to go.
Yeah, so they weren't going to like imprison us and make us...
It's one of the hard parts, in my opinion, of DMing is having... everybody always says don't railroad, and I do agree with that. But the tracks have to be there. It's your choice whether you get off them or not. But if I don't give you tracks, then the car doesn't go anywhere at all.
I didn't mean to imply that I felt that that's what was going to happen prior to it happening. It was very organic to what was going on. I'm just saying in retrospect, I felt like, since that was exactly where we went and how it sort of needed to go for anything to happen, they weren't just going to have us like tilling fields and stuff for, and whipping us and being like, well, I guess that's the end until we make our escape from a village of people we couldn't beat 18 of,
So here's a little thing for me. I hate that railroading for DMing is considered a bad term, and I understand why it is, because they're thinking single set of tracks. But I like the term railroad because I think, to me, it describes the best it is. Because railroads have multiple tracks. You can get on them, you can get off them, the train can stop, you can get off and do your own thing, and then you can come back, when you're ready, get on the train and go. And to me, I would use that as a positive term. You should railroad someone, but not in the single track. But go off in different branches, leave, do your own thing, get back on the train later when you're ready, and go on your way. And hypothetically, you could get off that train and never get back on. But those tracks should be there so that when you guys run out of things that you want to do, I could say, hey, here's an adventure this way.
So maybe a more accurate term would be shepherding.
Yeah.
Like we're all sheep, and it's like, we're wandering everywhere, but you're trying to guide us on our course, but occasionally we're wandering off a little bit, and it's like, okay, you're doing that. Okay, here's the main story again.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
If you go too far, you die.
I'm the wolf.
Oh, no.
Changing topics a little bit, I'm starting... I don't know if you guys are seeing it too, and I'd be curious, but like, even as weird as Tor has been, like, he's starting to develop in different ways. Like, even going back, like, he wanted to save his people from the mind flare, and now he's finding respect for different... If you're a priestess or a cleric, it's not even coming up that much yet, but, like, that's why I wanted to save her, because I'm starting to get respect in those
Despite
areas.
writing Martin rules in her shrine.
That's different. It's respecting someone in the profession, but still wanting to be the top in the profession.
I totally understand. I get it. I was making a joke, but I appreciate it. And, I think that is how most clergy are today. You hear about rabbi and priests who are friends, best friends. Yeah. Obviously, they both think the other one's wrong. That's part of the job. But they still respect each other. They still work together on things. There are huge events where the leaders of various religions work together to do something because there is a respect there. So, I absolutely love that. But don't get me wrong. I think the priest might write God rules.
And that's okay. I just thought it was really entertaining.
Yeah.
But I would say that I've seen the growth of Tor through. I mean, especially today. Again, like even just letting the whatever beast.
Yeah, I didn't put the animal thing together until even Kyle's like, it's kind of what you've been doing. I was like, that's probably more of me personally. It's just like that's.
But he's softening in the right ways, but he's still a crazy, interesting character.
It's great. I love it.
I think that's what a good dwarf is. A good dwarf comes off as two-dimensional, and then you find out they have their soft points.
Yeah.
I mean, Gimli, let's go, talk there. Hate elves, hate humans, hate it. But, throw me,
Yeah. You're gonna have to toss me.
Yeah, exactly.
I never thought I'd be dying next to an elf. How about dying next to a friend?
Never.
Yeah, never.
Fuck you! He kills himself.
I win.
The final count was 43.
Going back to Dragonlance Flint, he came off as that two-dimensional thing, but it turns out he was like sort of the father
Yeah,
for
and
him.
who knew?
There are
Someone
literally
spoils things for
I'm
you.
not gonna do it.
Yeah,
I'm just
literally there are going to be people who have
within our group. I'm not gonna say what happened, but I
No, just
inadvertently
quiet, just
spoiled
quiet.
something that happened. I'm not
Among
gonna say.
our group, Kevin has become known as the spoiler.
Yes,
Dun, dun,
He just
dun.
referenced Dragonlance, and I spoiled things that happened in the book by accident. And
Such as?
immediately after
No,
saying it,
no.
I immediately regretted my mouth was operating on its own. That was back in high school, and I'd like to think I've learned, but I know. We'll see.
Some habits never gag.
But my point being, that's the difference between a good and bad dwarf. Is they should be the stereotypical dwarf with something extra.
Yeah.
That being said, I also love Pickle from the Salvatore's series, who's like,
Oh, is he the druid one?
yeah, he's a druid,
I love him.
druid dwarf who's
Me
completely off the
brother.
wall. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do like when they break the shell on that too. But
But I guess what I'm coming back to is I don't know if you guys. I mean, we're probably 30 to 40 episodes in at this point. Mm-hmm. Like, are you guys finding your characters changing in ways, or are they being, We'll start by.
Well, thank you. I today in particular, and also because obviously we've been doing it, and I did a lot of it for the yucks and just kept rolling with it, but I justified it by thinking like at the beginning, Blag never would have gotten naked. He would. I mean, in battle, yes, he would. He would, shed his
While
clothes
raging,
and everything,
especially,
but, he would not have done it so readily if they were just wanting to check him. There was just a couple of things, but I feel like he is growing more bold and he's growing up by being with you guys
the
on
dwarves
the
rubbing off on
adventure.
him.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I feel like you can literally see you all develop personalities, and I think this is true in life. This is not a knock at all. Then you came together, and everyone's personalities are starting to rub off on each other. Like, Rath's character was far darker when he started. Like, he was the darkest
He's the
character.
edgelord.
Yeah, and the light side of him really came out. And
think it
Blag
was
was
the
the
ring.
opposite end. He was a pure and innocent good. And as time came on, I'm not going to say he's becoming evil or dark or anything,
No,
but he's
he's having
normalizing.
fun.
He is normalizing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's balancing out.
Yeah, obviously in battle he's a monster that you don't want to deal with.
Sure,
but
sure.
I mean, in everyday life, like, he's starting to balance out and become a more full-fledged character.
And
But I think that's true in real life when you become more like your friends. You
Yeah, oh,
you have those
absolutely.
friends that you're friends with so long that you start saying the same things at the same
At the same
time,
time, yeah.
even though it's asinine what
We
you're
do
saying.
that, all the time. But like to that point, I was especially referenced earlier this recording session that we had around like the 30s, 40s. I found Court was like being the voice of reason for them. I was like, I'm finding, Court does have a little bit of a serious side, because when you picture a bard, typically it's like, he's just wandering and he's flirting with everyone and he just plays his tunes and he doesn't care. And I like that nice jovial side of Court, but at the same time, it's starting to like settle in. Like, I can be serious at times
I'm
too.
with a bunch of insane
Yeah, I'm
people.
like, oh my god, and I fit right in with them.
yeah.
I really like, I'm loving seeing everybody's characters
I
develop.
can feel
We're coming
Blag
together as a group.
growing.
Yeah.
I said there are still decisions that I'll make more for the funny, and then I'll kind of work my way into it. But it's like, yeah, but even for the funny, I don't think I would have done that, or Blag would have done that prior. So many missions ago. Back in the Lichstone Kingdom, as opposed to now in this kingdom. And I do
Sure.
agree with Mike / Tor that I can see those things happening.
And I think a big part with all the characters is in the very beginning you were all more inclined to go off on your. I mean, I remember episode 1. At least 3 of you tried to leave immediately, and that's fine. That was perfect with your character. But now you worry about each other. If somebody's off doing something, you guys really don't turn your back on each other. You go, I got to go help that guy.
I mean, I healed.
I saw.
I
it.
cast
Yeah,
at
you
least
actually-
not on me,
Blown
on
away.
someone else.
Blown away.
I was like, oh crap, they're actually in the party with me. I should try at least something.
I can heal someone other than myself.
And like, here's where I'm always struggling with that. I know it's fantastic making the jokes, and I make
we joke.
it's one of these. It comes down to resources, and it's not that I don't want to heal you, but it's like I can heal you for 8, but if I can kill the guy instead, then I don't have to worry about healing you. And it's always that give or take.
Checks and balance.
It's easier for me to like heal someone at the beginning of the battle because I realize there's still a long way to go. But if it's like he's all done fucked up and he's just about dead, or I heal the person, it's tough. I tend to want to just kill the guy, and then we can just heal as we need to.
I think it's more important sometimes. Like if there are still 3 of us standing and one of us is on the ground, let's just get the damage in. That person will heal after the battle.
Yeah,
but it's a difficult thing. But although I am finding, because thankfully between our combats we have enough time to like get our spell slots and stuff back. Like, well, there's usually like, for a long rest there. But I'm finding I'm spending a lot more spell slots than I used to, and I'm like, there's actually more than I realized, because it's not just, you can't just cast the second level spell at like with the second level spell slot. You could cast it higher. You can't cast low. You can't cast a second level spell at a lower spell slot, but you can cast like a little higher. And I'm starting to use it. I'm like, oh, I'm running out of first level spell slots. I can cast it at a third level spell. That'll do more healing, and so it's like turning out like, oh, I can use my magic more than I realized.
Yeah.
And so that's when I started going in. That's probably a character change for Court. I'm starting to be like, let me use my fucking spells. I'm a bard. Let me musically weave these spells for everybody. So.
I'm too stingy. I'm like, I have to save the high level spells for when I really need them.
Well, you're a cleric. You're the healer. I'm pretty much like the party buff. So
I still think you're the better healer than mine. I'm going to change some of my spells up because I only have one like legit healing spell.
I might, take Cure Wounds instead of Healing Word. I like the Healing Word as a bonus action, but Cure Wounds does more. But
you can always take both.
I suppose I could, but I'd have to lose something else. But I might go over something.
I think now that we can say that we leveled up. I think that's okay to say. So we're going to level 6 the next set. That's when I'm going to start reevaluating, because there's a lot of spells too that I prefer spells that give me utility. I don't always as far as I'm concerned, I only need one spell that hits hard. I don't care what the flavor is behind it, as long as I have that one. I like the gust of wind and the sleet storm and the fog. I like the weird stuff.
With Featherfall, we basically effectively together we turned that into like a short flight spell.
I think it's great, and that's
and even just your blizzard when the lava was coming down, that did reduce the damage drastically.
But like that's what I need. Like I don't. It's fun to hit hard, but like. I will leave that up to the crazy Blag, because I know he'll jump in the face of whatever it is, and like that's what he's good at. He is. I can hit him 4 times for like 20 damage each, or even Wrath does that, where I try to be like, okay, when we get into the weird scenario, I can pull out the weird spell or figure out a way to manipulate it and make it work.
And actually, now that you're 6, you should, I believe, you're going to get a pretty big bump in stuff, since you're splitting stuff between Barbarian and Monk.
Yeah, I think 6 is going to be a pretty, maybe not a game changer, but it's going to be a game amper.
Yeah, actually, we'll have to discuss, because you have some pretty awesome choices to make with the Monk path.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. And I'm glad, too, and you pointed it out, because, again, you wrote the story, Kyle, that... I shift at the end of arcs. And I didn't really do that on purpose, but I just feel a big bad.
Yeah.
It's like, even though again I didn't do jack shit to him this time. It's like I'm throwing at you, but
I think that's the awesome time though. It's not like
it's still visuals.
Here's a raptor, I'm gonna shift. Oh, here's a drow. I'm gonna you wait until it's like, oh, it's go time, and I like that. I love
because he doesn't, even though he didn't want to get rid of the shifting ability. Which that's actually a question. Did you expect me to?
I didn't know, and the option, that was a true option. You could have walked out of that tower a full lycanthrope or human, and I was going to let you do that. That was truly, truly, truly on you. I'm happy you didn't, but it was an option.
Yeah. Well, like I said,
I thought maybe you might say, "Oh, I want to become a shifter, and become a true shifter," because even though that's the as far as game rules go, you're a shifter. Storyline wise, you are this weird thing where you got bitten at the while that spell was on you that turned you into this barbarian thing, so you're kind of this weird in between. So it could have just been like, boom, all right, now you're a shift, here you go, you're just a shifter, which again would have let you control your transformations more, be less beast like, and be just like, okay, now I'm in my form but I'm still Blag,
right?
So part of me said, oh, maybe he'll go that path.
And I feel like that's part of the growth of the character thing that we were just talking about too. Is excuse me, if you had presented me with that back in the Lichstone Kingdom, I do believe I probably would have taken a different path to not keep that part of me. I think I probably would have just gone full human. To be honest with you, I feel like I would have. But at this point, I think Blag feels that being able to shift, although of course he doesn't like to do it and doesn't use it very often, is a potential spot of protection for his friends also. Like when we're in that big pinch, provided I don't consistently roll shit, which I do, I could potentially do some real damage.
That happens.
That'll be the nice blend with the monk, though, because as your monk level goes up, your physical attacks will start hitting more, which means your werewolf attacks are going to start hitting more. So
I am excited.
Yeah,
to
as you
level
get
up.
higher levels, you're going to become more and more monstrous.
Super excited to level up. Bard level 6 looks cool. I was debating maybe multi-classing, but I can't wait to see what everybody's getting on their next levels. So.
Well, for you and actually the listeners, my only rule with multi-classing is everybody can, but I do want presentations of why. Like you can't just be like, it's sweet, barbarian level 1 gets resistance. I'm doing why would
and I was gonna, but I was looking at the stuff a bard gets at level 6, and I'm like, I'm gonna hold off for now.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. And then the same thing. Like I actually one of the reasons Babushka exists is because Leech knew going into it his character was going to be part barbarian, part monk. Starting barbarian, and you have to have a teacher. Like, I'm never going to let someone be like, oh, now I'm a thief. Like, well, how? You don't just become a thief. Like, and that's something I'll work with you on. I'm not going to screw you over. But when you say, oh, I want to become part X, let me know ahead of time, and I'll work that into the story.
If anything, that might be the thing. It wouldn't even be fighter. Might be the thing I would multi-class into, because even though I'm a bard and I have a thief backstory, I don't actually have any rogue.
Yeah.
I'm not classed in a rogue at all. That might have been a thing, and that would probably be a little more reasonable if I multi-classed into that.
Exactly, and that's an easy one for me to write up for you because you've met multiple thieves at this point. You know thieves in your backstory.
Yeah.
So that's an easy one. But that's more just fun fluff for the listeners to know how we go about creating the world together.
Yeah, it's cool. Can't wait to see what we got next time.
Yeah. I'm pretty excited. And again, I'm pretty excited to find out more about the two of you, Court and Tor. In particular, apparently Tor, because Court, by his own admission, unless he's really holding out on us, is more of a straightforward story.
I mean, kind of. Yeah, it's just...
Which is great, too. I mean, not everything has to be some super twisty, labyrinthy thing. Sometimes a good story can just be a fun story.
I don't turn into anything.
You know?
Yes.
But I'm really excited to see more and more about what goes on, because pretty much every secret that I have is out there now.
Yeah, I think you're...
That's some kind of relief for you, I bet, too, at the same time.
It is, yeah. Like, the sister thing was, like, the last thing I was sitting on. Even that wasn't that huge of a deal. It just never bothered coming up.
Yeah, it's just you have a sister. It's not
I have a sister. Yeah, I don't know anything about her. I never met her.
Yeah, your story and Rath's story is mostly out there. You each have a couple little knickknacks in the background. It's more just people, to encounter. Yeah. So, yeah, it is time to start diving into Tor and Court's background. So that'll be interesting going forward.
Which I think is also why I got a little confused with the sister thing, is because I was really expected to just all right, we're going to follow one of these two guys. That's what's like, let them go first. I'll follow along. And then all of a sudden, it's like my backstory, and I'm like, which is not your fault. I just was ill prepared for it.
Yeah. We all are.
Yeah.
I have things in my backstory, but I'm more curious to see about my friend's story, for lack of a better term. It's more of I have these things, and it's more seeing on how it's going to progress, and that's what I'm actually interested to see how things play out. I know that sounds really weird, without diving into I have nuggets in the backstory that I really like his backstory. I don't think it's as complex as someone like Blag's, and I think at the end, anyone at this table, I think mine is probably the least complex, but most straightforward. But it is very forward heavy. It's more of how does this scenario. And in my head, I've got 8 different ways everything could play out, and I know it won't play out in any of those. But it's just in my head, this would be the cool way if this happened.
It's much like preparing for a D&D game as the DM. We're preparing for, okay, if they say it's this, we're going to say this. We're going to say, and then this and then something happens in game, and you're like, I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
So.
I didn't expect my sister to come up again at all until we were like, well, let's see what his part of the poem means. And you know what I mean? I know that's a dumb way to think about it, but again, I'm kind of a newbie at this whole D&D thing too. So.
I think you're well enough into it now.
I'm growing.
That you're not a newbie anymore.
No, at
you're
this point,
among
probably
us.
not. Yeah.
No, I think where you are is the idea that you're getting flashcards now and all that is just that you're now at the level we figured out to do that for ourselves early. Not flashcards, but I have my character sheet, the preset D&D one, but none of it is what the D&D stuff is. I had to fill in with my own notes and make my own sections, which is the same as your cheat sheets. My Guandao does this, and mine just says oh, your spellcasting ability is this, and this is why. And I wrote the explanation because I know I'm going to screw it up, and then I even have page references so I can find it again when I do screw it up. And I was saying Megan the entire time as being the Ankylosaur, and I literally have pet mimic named Megan staring at me on the sheet, but I only looked at the word Megan. I was like, nah, it's clearly a name.
And I just realized, because we had a pun. It's Ankylosaur's Beth. Beth and Kylosaur.
Beth and Kyle, you're right. Yeah.
Which we'll try. I'll try and fix that in the intro.
I'll fix my notes, but I'm still going to do it wrong because that's just the kind of person I am.
Well, that's what I love about the intros and outros too. Is that it's a good way to joke about what idiots we are between sessions. So like, no, this is clearly not what any of us meant at all.
Yeah, don't worry about that scroll.
Don't worry about that scroll.
Cool.
All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen, and
thank you.
Hope everybody enjoyed another Behind the DM Screen.